Yeah, sorry, Ryerson. I know I saw your mom's email this morning about your internet not being very good. So it might lag, unfortunately. It might also lag. I'm not sure if the amount of people like in a meeting, if that matters, like if that makes things run a little bit slower or not. I would imagine it would. I don't see how it wouldn't. So it might do that regardless. Okay, who are we missing? Let me see. Are we missing Aaliyah? Yes. Hopefully you guys had a good last week online. And now hopefully everybody knows what they're doing and has it all figured out because of last week. I gotta wake up. Okay, so maybe as some other people join, we will begin just so that way we can get a move on and not run hopefully too past 11. So I feel like with today, this morning, I'm gonna do a little bit of a quick kind of tour of the D2L page and our Teams meetings and answer any questions that you guys might have. And then we're going to continue like right into content because we have to start a new unit. I am not loving that we have to start our new unit online, but alas, here we are. Okay, I'm going to share my screen with you. So hopefully you guys will be able to see when I need you to. All right, so hopefully you guys can see that. You should be able to see my Teams calendar right now. So since we're already on Teams, I will just show you this if you're having a hard time, because like I said, I see a lot of you guys are joining as guests. You should have got an email that says, or that has the invitation to both daily meeting number 1 and daily meeting number 2. You'll see the daily meeting number 2 is at a weird time. I think it's like 12:21. Yeah, just because when we create these meetings, especially because I had to create meetings last week and they're at the same time, I have to cancel like week B's meetings during week A and vice versa. So I needed to know which one was which. So that's why I made it at a weird time, 12:21. Oh my goodness. I need to stop yawning. Okay, so you'll see if you go into Teams, if you have the Teams app, I find that's the easiest. If you're using it from the web browser, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know anything about it. I don't know. I've never seen it on the web browser because I have the app on my phone. I also have it on my computers. So I've never had to use it on the web browser, but I just know that apparently you miss out on some features, I guess, if you use the web browser. I don't think it's really a big deal if you use it, but it might be, I don't know, easier like internet connection wise if you have the app opposed to using the web browser. So that might be an option if you are like finding you're having troubles when it comes to your internet. I would try that. But if you go to your calendar on the left-hand side, this is where you're going to access all your meetings. So you'll see right now we're in this meeting, tell you the time. We have our second meeting at 12:21 technically. So I try to structure the day, and I'm sure your other teachers last week did the same thing, but I'm trying to structure the day similar to if we were face-to-face. So do you remember in the mornings, if we were face-to-face, you guys had that time generally to work on assignments or work on tasks. And so I'm still doing that. So I'm still giving you the morning from 9 to 10. Not as much time, but still the hour in the morning to work on anything. So like this morning, obviously I had that video that I wanted you guys to watch and just kind of get familiar with the online program and figure out if you have any questions that you need me to answer. And then now we have our first daily meeting. And then after our meeting is done at 11, I did 11 because then there's some wiggle room. Because 11:35, I still want to just have for your lunch break as if we were face to face. So we've got from 11:35, I should say from 11 to 11:35, you will have something that you need to begin, basically, whether it be a reading or something that is, connected to obviously our meeting that you'll have to begin. But I'm not going to expect you to work on it through your lunch break. If that's how you want to structure your day, like obviously you're at home, it's totally up to you. But I've just kind of given a guideline for how to structure your day. And so then at 12:20 will be our second daily meeting, because if we were face to face, you would have your lunch end at 12:15 and we would start class again. So I gave you a 5-minute kind of window to get on your computer and get everything organized. So we have our daily meeting number 2 as well here. So like if you come onto Teams within 15 minutes of your meeting, it will say join, but like you can still like click it and click join. Oh, excuse me. But I just wanted to show you the calendar because I find that it's the easiest place to access the meetings. That being said, we'll go over to our course D2L page. So if you see, we're on the page, it looks a little bit different than it did when we were in class. So what I'm going to do is every day, this is going to become available at 8 a.m. So I write them out the night before or a couple nights before, and they are all just scheduled to upload at 8 a.m. on their respective day. So this is our daily schedule for today. If you scroll down, you will see what I posted last night, just a little blurb for you guys to read over. And then if you keep scrolling, this should look familiar. So this is obviously from when we were still face to face. So this is our last week before the break. And you can see what we did. You had your Unit 2 test. And then Friday, we were working on our CCAs. Okay, so if you are needing a refresher at all, which you shouldn't because we're starting an entire new unit anyways, it's all still down here. So I posted this last night, basically just letting you know it should be kind of additional information to what you've already learned from your teachers last week. So you should be at this point well aware that us going online at this point is very different from when we went online in the spring. Back in March when we went online, there were very little expectations of you guys. So if you were passing the class already that you were online for, you didn't really have to do anything. We didn't have Teams meetings. Everything was just on Brightspace. And you really, if you're passing, like I said, you didn't really have to do anything. There were no penalties for not doing the work. Whereas obviously this time it's quite different. You have to do the work. We have to have our Teams meetings. We have to have 225 minutes a day of synchronous learning, meaning live teaching. So we can choose how to divvy that up. Obviously, we do 2 meetings a day, and then I'm available virtually for you guys all day. But I'm not going to make you guys sit in front of a computer and talk to me all day, which is what I would normally do if we were face-to-face. So what I've done here is told you guys the schedule, which I've already started to go over with you. We got to lunch period, and then our daily meeting number 2 is in the afternoon. And then after our daily meeting, our second daily meeting, which will go until like 1:15, you usually have, I'll have like office hours for live Teams meetings. I said from like 1:15 to 1:45, and then 1:45 to 2:55 is when I take my prep period. However, if you have questions or you still wanted to do a meeting during that time, like I'll be available. We just have to make sure we take a break, we take a prep period, so that way it's not too overwhelming for us. So there's a document here. I don't know if maybe you saw it in your other classes. You can click on it. But if your family or you yourself are having a hard time navigating Brightspace as well as getting onto Teams, because I see like a lot of you guys are logging into Teams as guests, you can click this. Julia, I don't know what open share tray means. Does anybody know, like, to make the screen bigger, how to do that? Like, does yours look like this? Have this like little box in the bottom, or I'm not really sure how it looks. Either way, if you click on this, it takes you to our school board made this. It's a Brightspace guide for families. You can see along the side here are the little tabs to talk to you about, or like that you can take to certain things. So home, like Brightspace shouldn't be too hard for you to get on. So you should already know how to log on. So that should be easy. You should know how to use the content page because we've had a lot of stuff posted in there already. The discussion will be new. So creating a discussion post, you will be asked to do that at some point this week, as well as replying to your two of your classmates' posts. That being said, I'm hoping that you probably have already experienced that with your classes last week. But if not, in this document, it shows you where to go. So usually it will say communication and then discussion, but I've just put the discussion one right at the top of our homepage. So you'll just click on discussions and then you'll see you can click on something and then start a new thread. So this will show you step by step how to create a discussion post. So what I was more so leaning towards, especially for all of you that are in as guests right now, there's a section on Teams, Microsoft Teams. So this will show you basically, it says that you can access Teams in the content area, but I'm not going to do that. Instead of posting the, or using, sorry, rather the Teams widget for our homepage, I just created the meetings for the whole week on Teams itself. And then I just emailed you out the link. What is that? Welcome back, Landon. All right, so there's different ways that you can do it. You can join, or so you can download the app, or you can use the web version, online version, or I think that's basically the only two options. So this will show you and like your parents or your guardians how to download the Teams app, as well as how to join a meeting, and where all the buttons mean. Basically, selecting this icon will take you to the chat. This will make you leave the meeting, obviously, so on and so forth. So this document I find pretty helpful for navigating stuff like that. So you should have seen that already, but let's go back to our schedule. So every morning I will post our morning prayer. Obviously we don't have announcements in the mornings, but we will watch our morning prayer. We do have a new, yes, Xavier, you are. We do have a new chaplain. And so you'll meet him. You probably met him last week, I'm guessing, when you did the morning prayers with your other classes. But he has been making morning prayer videos for us to post on our pages, and you know, it's been very helpful. So what you were supposed to do from between 9 and 10 was to watch the video below. So this is a video that I made for my class last week, but the information and everything still applies. So instead of me making an entirely new one, I just let you know that I made this for my week B class. However, the information is still the same. So I just posted it for you guys to watch. So I didn't have to make an exactly the same video, just instead of saying that you'll be with me for 2 weeks, you'll be with me for 1. I don't, Julia, are you using your cell phone or are you on the computer? Because if you're using your phone, I think you just have to turn your phone sideways. Okay, but if you're on the computer, you should be able to just maybe, can you double click on like my icon, like where my face shows up? Or like, I don't know how to, I've never been on the other end. I don't know how to click on things. So if you guys are in the chat and you're using your computer, there's a question about how to make the screen bigger. So if you know how to do that, okay, the Ryson says you have to pin her. So I know if you go over, like if you see where my face is on this screen, where all the people's initials are, if you can see my face, if you hover over the name, you'll see there's 3 little dots. Then you have to click pin. And then I should be the only, or the top face or top screen that you see. Xavier, when you joined the meeting, it asks you to what audio you want to use. Make sure you click computer audio. You have to say that use computer audio, so that way you can hear me. I guess if you can't hear me, you can't see that. I'll type it in the chat. Whew, it's early, guys. Okay. Let's continue on. Also, for those of you, I'm sure like I said, your last week's teachers did this as well, but I record all of our Teams meetings, and then I'll post them on our D2L page as soon as Teams emails me with the video recording. So if you miss a meeting, like say you can only make one of the meetings in the day, if you miss it, then you can just go on to D2L and you can watch the video. So that way you didn't miss on any information. Oh, the lights flickered. Let's hope our power doesn't go up. It did last week. Okay. So our daily meeting, number 1. So like I said, we are beginning our intro to Unit 3, which is called To Action. So this unit is basically all on social justice, natural law, obeying or obedience, and prayer. So we will have a virtual guest speaker on on Wednesday. And you will be able to ask him whatever questions you want. We will talk about that more tomorrow, because your afternoon task is going to be to come up with at least 2 questions to ask our virtual guest speaker. So we're going to have, obviously, hopefully you can probably figure it out by now, but we're going to have a police officer come and onto the Teams meeting and talk to you guys about social justice, natural law, things that are going on in the world right now. and kind of their stance on it. So if we were face-to-face, normally I would like to start this unit with a mind map. So we've done a bunch of mind maps before, right, where I write the word in the middle. I would have wrote social justice in the middle in a circle, and then we would come up with whatever comes to mind when we think of social justice. But I don't have a trackpad, and you should see me attempt to draw by hand on the whiteboard app for Teams. So I'm not even going to attempt it. So instead, we are going to watch this video on basically an animated video that provides a really good visual for what justice is, because it can get confusing. And so then after we're done watching this video, we're going to jump into our note on natural law and social justice. So I've written on here, hopefully you guys have seen this. Like I said, these will post at 8 a.m. Every morning. So you can either have the note open on your screen, but I suggest you either print it and then write out some points as we go, like as I talk, basically, in addition to what's on the slides, or write it by hand to still make sure that you retain that information. When we go over the note, if you are writing it by hand, just make sure you let me know in the chat so I don't like zoom through the slides really quickly. I'll give you guys time with each slide, like just like I would if we were face to face, to write the information down. So as I said here, don't forget to keep your microphones off, unless it says you've been given permission to turn them on, to add to a discussion question in length that cannot be quickly typed in the chat. So like I said, there's this, if you're on your Teams page here, which is where you should be probably because you can see my screen, up top, you'll see the little raise your hand icon, and beside it is the chat. So you can click this and you'll see over here, like my hand has been raised. And so I can see that. When I am sharing my screen with you, I can't see whose hand has been raised unless I click back into here. But on my phone, because I have the chat open on my phone, you can see, I can see there's a little hand icon. So I can say, all right, I see someone's hands up. Turn your mic on and ask your question or say whatever it is that you got to say. So that's one way, but you make sure you have to click to lower your hand, or else it will stay up there indefinitely. The chat is over here, so this is where you can come, and this is where I would like you guys to type to add you to discussion or ask questions, because that's what I have open on my phone. I keep open the show participants just so I can see who's in here, and I will be downloading the attendance list from here, so I'll be able to mark you guys present. So after our meeting, I'm available for office hours. So if you, during this time too, like any office hours times, if you want to schedule like a one-on-one meeting with me on Teams, like I'm okay with that. We can do that if you want to go over something or whatnot. But what I want you to do after is begin working on this handout. So you can download this if you click on it. Okay, no worries, Landon. So if you click on it, it should download for you automatically. And then you'll have to click enable editing. So you can see your instructions are right here as well. So you're going to read the scripture passage and then answer the questions. And then you're going to submit it to the Dropbox when you're done. So to access, because you guys were not able to take your Bibles home or your textbooks home, anytime you guys have textbook reading or Bible reading, if it's textbooks, I will scan the pages for you and have them on D2L so you can read them on the computer. But for Bible passages, this website, Bible Gateway, is fantastic. So you can literally just copy and paste this URL into a web page, and it will take you to the Bible Gateway. Let me see. So I'll show you. Ta-da! So you can type up here. So let me see. So let's see. The first one is reading John chapter 13, lines 1 through 17. So So you will type in here 13, 1 through 17, and hit enter, and it's literally right here. So you can type in any passage up here and then search it, and it will take you to that passage to read it. All right. So I've linked it right here as well. So you can begin working on that, then take your lunch. And then at 12:20, we'll have our second daily meeting, and we're going to go over reading together. I'll be reading it, obviously, by hand, but I'll read it for you guys. You can follow along. If you can always mute your meeting if you want or something while we read, if that's distracting for you. If you'd prefer to read it on your own, that's totally fine. But we will read that together. It is this one. So I want you guys to make sure you're highlighting and annotating when it comes to reading these articles, because they are important. So you'll see them on your test once we get there. So we've got this reading to go through, and then we've got some questions that can help you with your understanding. So we're going to read this as a class like we would if we were face-to-face, and go from there. So after our meeting, you'll come back to D2L and everything's linked here for you. And then from the rest of the afternoon, basically from 1:15 to 2:55, I want you to work on your Justice Scriptural Links handout. And then I'm going to make a Dropbox for you after this meeting. And so you'll see it if you scroll to the top and click on Dropbox. This is going to look a lot different for you because of my screen is going to be different. So you won't see these at all. But you will see, I'll make a new assignment. You'll see, it'll say Justice Scriptural Links. You'll click on it, and then that's where you'll upload your finished document. And so that's all I want you to work on and complete for basically the end of the day. It will be due by the end of the day tomorrow, because it shouldn't take you very long. And that's what we're doing today. Okay, do you guys have any questions before we dive in and watch this video and then do our note? Okay. I'm gonna make this screen. Hopefully you can hear it.
If you were a praying mantis, it would be socially acceptable to devour your mate.
And if you're a honey badger, you have no regard for other animals. You don't care.
If you're a panda with twins, it's normal to abandon one to take care of the other.
But if humans do any of these things, we would call it wrong, unfair, or unjust.
Yeah, why is that? Why do humans care so much about justice?
Well, the Bible has a fascinating response to that question. On page 1, humans are set apart from all other creatures as the image of God.
Yeah, God's representatives who rule the world by his definition of good and evil.
And this identity, it's the bedrock of the Bible's view of justice. All humans are equal before God and have the right to be treated with dignity and fairness no matter who you are.
And that would be nice if we all did that. But we know how the world really works.
And the Bible addresses that too. It shows how we are constantly redefining good and evil to our own advantage at the expense of others.
Yeah, self-preservation. And the weaker someone is, the easier it is to take advantage of them.
And so in the biblical story, we see this happening on a personal level, but also in families, and then in communities, and in whole civilizations that create injustice, especially towards the vulnerable. But the story doesn't end there. Out of this whole mess, God chose a man named Abraham to start a new kind of family. Specifically, Abraham was to teach his family to keep the way of the Lord by doing righteousness and justice.
If doing righteousness, that's a Bible word I don't really use, but what comes to mind is being a good person.
But what does that even mean, being good? The biblical Hebrew word for righteousness is tzedakah, and it's more specific. It's an ethical standard that refers to right relationships between people. It's about treating others as the image of God.
with the God-given dignity they deserve.
And this word justice, it's the Hebrew word mishpat. It can refer to retributive justice.
Like if I steal something, I pay the consequences.
Exactly. Yet most often in the Bible, mishpat refers to restorative justice. It means going a step further, actually seeking out vulnerable people who are being taken advantage of and helping them.
Yeah, some people call this charity.
But mishpat involves way more. It means taking steps to advocate for the vulnerable and changing social structures to prevent injustice.
So justice and righteousness are about a radical, selfless way of life.
Yeah, and you find this idea all over the Bible. Like here in the book of Proverbs, what does it mean to bring about just righteousness?
Open your mouth for those who can't speak for themselves.
And what do these words mean for the prophets, like Jeremiah?
Rescue the disadvantaged, and don't tolerate oppression or violence against the immigrant, the orphan, and the widow.
And like here, look in the book of Psalms.
The Lord God upholds justice for the oppressed, gives food to the hungry, and sets the prisoner free. But he thwarts the way of the wicked. Whoa, he thwarts the wicked?
Yeah, in Hebrew, the word wicked is rasha. It means guilty or in the wrong. It refers to someone who mistreats another human, ignoring their dignity as an image of God.
So justice and righteousness is a big deal to God.
Yes, it's what Abraham's family, the Israelites, were to be all about. They ended up as immigrant slaves being oppressed unjustly in Egypt. And so God confronted Egypt's evil, declaring them to be rasha, guilty of injustice. And so he rescued Israel. But the tragic irony of the Old Testament story is that these redeemed people went on to commit the same acts of injustice against the vulnerable. And so God sent prophets who declared Israel guilty.
But they weren't the only ones. There's injustice everywhere.
Yeah, some people actively perpetrate injustice. Others receive benefits or privileges from unjust social structures they take for granted. And sadly, history has shown that when the oppressed gain power, they often become oppressors themselves.
So we all participate in injustice, actively or passively, even unintentionally. We're all the guilty ones.
And so this is the surprising message of the biblical story. God's response to humanity's legacy of injustice is to give us a gift, the life of Jesus. He did righteousness and justice, and yet he died on behalf of the guilty. But then God declared Jesus to be the righteous one when he rose from the dead. And so now Jesus offers his life to the guilty so that they too can be declared righteous before God, not because of anything they've done, but because of what Jesus did for them.
The earliest followers of Jesus experienced this righteousness from God, not just as a new status, but as a power that changed their lives and compelled them to act in surprising new ways.
Yeah, if God declared someone righteous when they didn't deserve it, the only reasonable response is to go and seek righteousness and justice for others.
This is a radical way of life, and it's not always convenient or easy. It's courageously making other people's problems my problems.
This is what Jesus meant by loving your neighbor as yourself. It's about a lifetime commitment fueled by the words of the ancient prophet Micah. God has told you, humans, what is good, and what the Lord requires of you is to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God.
Okay. So hopefully that gives you guys a bit of perspective on what justice means, basically. So you'll see in our note, basically, the video it did talk about some people call or mistaken justice for charity. So there is a big difference between the two, and we're going to talk about that in our note. So that way you guys have a clear idea on what justice means specifically versus what charity is. All right. So like I said, if you're writing this by hand, make sure you let me know in the chat so that way I can ensure that I don't go too fast. But you'll see our pencil icons are here. just as they were if we were face to face. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Landon. Awesome. Okay. So if some people are writing them by hand, I will try my best to go slow. Oh, lots of people are. Okay, that makes me kind of happy. I apologize also if my dog barks or makes another appearance. He gets lonely during the meetings and has to come up and say hi eventually. Okay, so like I said, our note will be on natural law and social justice. I know. Good boy. Oh. He's staggering his way over here. You're okay. You're okay. Good boy. Okay, so hopefully we all have our title down. So what is natural law? So natural law is a moral code, basically, that God wants humans to abide by. So it's obviously not a real law. It's not something that you can, it's not something that you can be charged for if you go against it, for example. But it's basically just knowing to do right versus wrong. So natural law refers to all of the fundamental rights and duties that God gave humans. So according to St. Thomas Aquinas, all humans were born with the ability to understand the primary principles of natural law. So you were basically born with the ability to know right from wrong, right? So you know when you're doing something right, and you know when, maybe you've made not such a great choice. We talked about this in our last unit about moral decision making. And natural law and moral decision making kind of go hand in hand. St. Paul, who wrote most of the letters in the Bible, taught that the principles of natural law were written in our hearts and in our minds. So again, natural law, think about something that comes naturally to us. So it's not something that you need to learn specifically or study. It's just your instinct, right? So that gut feeling. So, treating people with respect, not stealing, things like that should just come naturally to us. Things that we should just know, all right, yeah, this is right, and versus this is wrong. So we'll give you some time to write that down. We'll give you another minute or so. I hate not being able to see you guys writing and judge how fast you're writing. it makes things very difficult. Knox. Quit looking. Hey. All right, do we have this slide down? We good to move on? I hope. I don't see anybody saying no in the chat, so we're gonna. Everyone's good? Okay. Here we go. Okay, so you don't need to write this down, but here's just an example from a passage in the Bible. Hebrews chapter 10, line 16 says, "This is the covenant I will make with them after that time, says the Lord. I will put my laws in their hearts and I will write them on their minds." So this is just referring to natural law. Sorry, Knox is being a suck. All right, so how do we respect natural law? So we can understand God's expectations for us through listening to our conscience. So remember, we talked last unit about our conscience, forming our conscience, and then making moral decisions using that conscience. So that is where we, how we know and understand natural law is through our conscience. Because we talked about, remember, in that forming our conscience handout, we learned that our conscience is God's voice within us. So it's God guiding us to make choices that are right versus wrong. And just like any law, like if we know what the laws are, like we know it's not okay, it's against the law to steal, it's against the law to murder, it's against the law to do a lot of things, and we're fully aware of that. However, people still break the law, and that's the same for natural law, right? So just because God's voice is within us and speaking to us through our conscience, we know, the answer, we know right from wrong, yet we can still go against that. We can go against what our conscience tells us to do and break that natural law. It's not against the law to go outside, but there might be a curfew soon. So for example, when you're trying to foster healthy and loving relationships, we can look no further than our conscience for guidance. So, we all naturally want to be treated the way, want to, have a certain way that we want to be treated, and thus we should treat others that way as well. Wearing a mask is in the new 11th commandment. So we're all rational beings. That's what separates us from, plants and animals. And we can use our ability to reason and to comprehend God's goals for us. Right? So because we can rationalize, because we are moral beings, we can then know and understand right from wrong, and therefore we know natural law. So I'll give you guys some time to write that down. Also, what I'll do is we definitely won't have enough time in this meeting to go through this entire note. And I don't want to make you guys sit at your computer for an additional, say, half an hour until lunch. So what we'll do is at 11 o'clock, we will pause wherever we are in the note. I'll let you guys go to continue, then begin working on your scriptural links handout and have your lunch. And then when we come back together at 12:20, we will continue with the note, and then we'll do our reading as well. So that should be break up the day a little bit better. I don't want you guys are probably, if you're like me, you get a little antsy, sitting and looking at your computer screen for X amount of minutes. So I will, or hours rather. So I don't mind pausing in our note and then continuing it in the afternoon. Quickly. Hey. Yeah. Okay. Oh, that scared me. Come here. Are we all good to move on to the next slide? So we can get one more slide in before the afternoon. Oh, oh. All right, consensus is yes. All right. So natural law and justice. So how are they connected? So justice is an important virtue. So virtue is a good habit. So remember, we looked at 3 different virtues last unit, or unit 1 rather, right? It was hope, faith, and love. So justice is a virtue that works hand in hand with natural law. So justice involves striving to ensure the well-being of others as well as ourselves. So if you remember from that video, it's about equity, so not equality. So equality means fair, or no, equality means equal, basically, right? So everybody gets the same. But equality doesn't always work in our society. It doesn't work for everybody. And so what we need to strive for is equity. So equity is fairness. So what works for one person might not be enough for somebody else. And so they might need a little bit more. So that might not be seen obviously as equal because one person will have more than the other. However, it's with regards to need. So that person needs more, and therefore to make it equitable, to make it fair, that's just how it has to work. And so that is how we look at justice. Okay, so when we work towards justice, we're respecting the natural law that God established. And although we have knowledge of God's laws, we need to nurture our ability to identify and seek justice. So basically, for example, what we're going to look into a little bit more later on is basically helping the poor. That man does respect the natural law. But yes, so basically helping the poor, right? So we need to look out for those who are less fortunate, right? So if you have more than you need in one area and you know of a person or people that have less than they need, it is our natural law basically to provide and to help others. So that's what it talks about with justice, is to seek the well-being of others. It's to do what you can to make sure that that happens. So like the video said, we are all guilty of being unjust, right? So we are, like I've talked about since Unit 1, by nature, humans are kind of narcissistic creatures, right? We think about ourselves generally before we think about anybody else, and that's just kind of how our brains work. That being said, we are all guilty of, turning a blind eye, I should say. We're all guilty of not doing everything we can to help others. And unfortunately, in the video we saw, there are statistics that show people who are oppressed, once they are no longer oppressed and they're up, and they have everything they need, then they too then become oppressors. So it just naturally happens, but we need to seek out how to do better and seek justice. Figure of speech, but literally yes, Landon. So what we'll do, because it's just about 11 o'clock, I'll let you guys get this slide written down if you're writing it by hand. I'll give you guys a couple more minutes to leave it up so that way you can write it out, this slide, and then we will break. You guys can work on your Justice Scriptural Links handout. Just begin it, and then make sure you take your lunch break whenever it is that you guys want to divvy up your day. Just make sure you take a break. I don't want you guys to be, living and breathing our religion class all day. So make sure you take a break, and then we will come back at 12:20, and we will continue on from this slide. All right, so like I said, I record these meetings. So once we end this meeting, I will get emailed a copy of the video recording. So then I'll turn it into a YouTube video. like I have been with my last week's class, and I'll post it on D2L. And then at the start of our 1220 meeting, I'll show you where I'm posting them. So that way you guys can make sure you go on and see them if you do miss a meeting or if you can't be present. Like I know Xavier has a sibling that is also doing virtual school and they need to share their device. So for someone like Xavier who has to leave halfway through our meeting, it will be helpful for him to then go on and watch the rest of it whenever you get a chance, right? So if you for whatever reason can't make a meeting, don't sweat it too much. Just make sure that you watch the video. Yeah, Landon, basically if you do something dumb on here, it is going to be recorded and preserved forever. Aw, Claire. Tell Ava I miss her too. And I miss it. It was a good week. Usually, like I told you guys, like that's usually my nightmare class. But no, they were good. I was pleasantly surprised. Okay, so hopefully you guys have this slide down. I'm going to exit out, stop sharing my screen. Okay, hopefully you can see my face now. Although I think my face shows the whole time when I'm doing the notes, which is funny because I don't realize it and I feel like I talk like this close to my computer screen, but it is what it is. All right, guys, so you are free to go. I will download our attendance list so I can make sure I mark you all present for today. For this morning anyways. And we will get back together at 12:20. So good luck. If you have any questions about anything that we've gone over so far, or if you have any questions about the Justice Scriptural Links handout, let me know and I will be here for you. All right. Thank you for a great first meeting, guys. And I look forward to seeing you again at 12:20. Goodbye, my friends.